There's a tent, there's a barbecue, there's a little seating right here. There's even a sleeping bag hanging from a tree along with an umbrella. It looks like it could be a regular campsite in Algonquin Park, but this is actually a homeless tent encampment, albeit one of the cleaner ones we've seen in the city of Toronto. Now, as we first told you on City News, the number of little tent villages is up about 20% between 2015 and 2016. As of last year, the city knows of 131 tent encampments, big and small, across our city. And one of the major concerns tonight is there's more people sleeping in tents like this than available beds in our shelter system.
There's a history of encampments in the city of Toronto and in other large urban centers across North America.
Yesterday, we took you inside one tent village, which is scheduled to be cleaned out by city workers and police under the Gardiner near Spadina, where syringes are scattered throughout. There's dogs, mattresses, even bedside tables.
The numbers have been on the rise ever since we started doing this work in 2005. And it's a function of the increase in population in Toronto and, of course, the increasingly high price of housing in this city.
And when it comes to shelters, the number of people using them is also on the rise. Shelter occupancy rates have been rising every month, year over year in Toronto. April 2016 saw just 4,100 beds occupied. That number shot up to more than 4,600 this past April.
In the men's sector, its occupancy is about 99%. Really, that's just the time it takes to turn over a bed.
It's not much better for women. Last week, on average, there was only about 7 available shelter beds across the city. No matter your gender, there's one thing we hear time and time again about shelters from Toronto's homeless.
I won't go there. There's a few times I've been there, and it's always fighting, and yeah, it's ridiculous. The bed bugs and stuff, right? I'd rather sleep in my tent in minus 20 weather than go to a shelter.
The most expensive alternative you can possibly come up with is the jail system, and that's kind of all we got.
Gary Ghobrial has worked with people coming out of our prison system for decades. He estimates 20% of those in our jails were at one time homeless, and some of those chose to commit a crime to get off the streets or out of a shelter for the comfort of incarceration.
They call it 3 hots and a cot, right? They get their meals. As long as they can keep their head down, their mouth shut, they'll be okay. It's sad that that's safer than being in the shelter system.
When it comes to improving the condition and perception of both current and future shelters, the word shelter might not even be used in our city going forward. And those working on the front lines say we need to start thinking outside of the box.
We need to be building transitional housing and incorporate that into the model of sheltering people, and that they not simply be emergency shelters, but that people can see beyond emergency sheltering, and that there's an opportunity for them to be moved into housing and supported to move into appropriate housing.
The city says one of their priorities is getting people into more permanent housing. Now, there is the Streets to Homes program, which is fairly new, and over the last couple of years as it's been running, they've got about 500 people each year out of tents off the streets and into a more permanent residency situation. Now, the city is also looking at opening up about 10 new shelters in Toronto, though they say one of the major hurdles they have to jump through is finding neighborhoods willing to accept these shelters.